sure
one of
was.
the more interesting pre-shows we've had in a while. Sorry it took us a while to get on here. I was late.
18 minutes of fun.
But no, we had about 4 minutes of fun, 14 minutes of waiting for Eklund to get his act together. But yeah, but then we heard all kinds of fun things. But anyway, we're not going to go into it.
And we're expecting to have Kevin Allen if he can somehow get through the
if
invite.
Google will allow it.
The firewall is blocking him.
Google will allow it somehow. I don't know. He's probably logged out of something. You know, it's so easy to get messed up on this Google Hangouts thing.
But we love it. You know.
Without it.
Do they sponsor us?
Yeah, no, without it, I mean, they basically do sponsor us. I mean, they provide for this, which is something I give them credit for.
Yep.
You know, which is nice. I mean, before this, it was. I mean, believe me, Mike and I lived through the Talk Shoe days. I mean, this is not.
Oh yeah, I remember Talk Shoe.
This is nothing like Talk Shoe.
I remember doing the podcast over the phone with Mike.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I liked about Talk Shoe was the actual ability for people to call a phone number. That was kind of fun. Like we had we call in.
And I still do use TalkShoe for podcasts. It's easy. It's very easy to conference somebody in on my smartphone and then record it on TalkShoe and then download it and edit it, and you know it's a good free service. So I still give them a lot of credit.
It's a Pittsburgh group. People that TalkShoe comes from Pittsburgh, by the way, and they
come out of Pittsburgh then, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do a puck talk. Maybe they'll do a puck talk live there, and never mind.
Absolutely. Whoa.
It took a second for you to get that, Ek.
I know. I was coming off vacation, still so very relaxed, and yes. Then you had to bring up puck talk. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, Kevin will join us soon, but let's get started because we do have plenty to talk about here as I go through our notes, and let's start this show. And can you keep on Kevin, Mike, see what you can find out what's going on. I feel bad if I'm not. I think I'm doing everything right. So.
Yeah, the second time I got it, I didn't get it.
It couldn't possibly be my fault, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. We know that.
Thank you. Thanks very much. All right.
Well, I have to be nice to you today. I was a little mean yesterday. So.
You were very mean yesterday. I have to say, I left the show, you know, as I usually do after the show, huddled in a corner, shivering.
In a quivering mass.
Yeah, shivering in a corner is usually for the next hour.
Feeling like Droopy Dog? I'm sorry.
I just take a shower. I cower in the corner of the shower screaming I can't get clean.
Right. I just sit there and I'm going, December 1st, December 1st, December 1st.
No wire hangers ever! No,
try to get Hello, Hockey World! Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, December 1st, 2015.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Dan Petru.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, or somewhere as close to that as we can possibly get. You know, some days that's, 2 hours away. Some days it's 20 minutes away. And it's funny, we were just talking about how relaxed I looked on vacation. I showed a picture of my wife and I at a great place in a great bar in Siesta Key, which was just, like 5 days ago now. It seems like a month ago. But, and then it was, what was funny about that is as I did the podcast outside, I was doing it on, when I did the podcast twice from Florida, I do it on what they call the lanai.
Yes, the lanai.
Which is a great word. In other words, basically a deck.
Yep. A fancy patio.
A screened-in fancy patio, yeah. Which is common in, retirement places like where we were, which is my in-laws' place. So, but my in-laws and, sister-in-law and everybody who was there said I was so much happier doing the podcast.
And then you came back.
That I was just more upbeat and, and talkative. And they say you're pretty quiet, but, for an hour there you were laughing on the porch and talking to people and da-da-da-da. Like, yeah, I'm not like I'm not really an extroverted character. But it's pretty. Did you ever take that test, the Myers-Briggs? Did you see that, Russ? Did they have that for Stephen Colbert when you went?
No, they did not.
They had the funniest thing when you go to see a Stephen Colbert show. He did a segment, and we'll get right to hockey after this, I promise. He did a segment. When you go to see the Colbert Show live, they have a comedian comes out and kind of warms up the crowd.
Right.
But before that, even they had a pre-taped segment that he did, which would be a normal Stephen Colbert bit. But I think they saved it just for this, just to warm up the crowds.
Right.
It's him taking the Myers-Briggs personality test, which is like the
Oh, you know what? Were they showing that? Yeah, I did see that. I
Okay,
did.
you did. It was one of the funniest bits I've ever seen Colbert do because, if you've ever taken this test, it's the one that tells you if you're introverted, extroverted.
Right. They did.
I think I'm an NSFP or something like that. I don't know what it is. I'm introverted. I don't know, rational thinker or whatever. It's this whole thing that comes through, and it was just very funny. So when I took that test again, and I'm an NFNJ or whatever. It's really interesting, but it's one of those things that you have to.
I'm an introverted extrovert.
You're an introverted extrovert.
Can't be.
Cool story.
I think Dan's the most extroverted of us all.
Yeah,
probably.
I would think so. Yeah, I don't really.
My bet. I've seen Russ, and Russ has seen me away from this whole thing.
Whoa, in what way? Let's not make this creepy.
Yeah, I mean, no, not Russ and I haven't been that way for years.
Not in a biblical sense.
And and no one sees Mike. Mike just hides away in a corner.
I mean, if you're seeing me in the urinal, I'm gonna start using the stall.
Yeah, you're the one who wrote Tim Panaccio sucks above the urinal last year. I know you.
Which stall?
Speaking of stall.
I'm not going there.
All right,
let's
start off the show, and I want to start off today. We're waiting for Kevin Allen to hopefully to figure out how to log on to the internet. No, Kevin would love that joke himself. Garret Sparks. Let's start right there. I mean, this is just an awesome story. I mean,
yeah.
There are. I mean, I before Mike can even say anything because
let's
Mike,
let him go last.
I heard even in your I got the sense where you were going. So, shh.
Yep, he goes last.
Yes, you go last.
No.
Before you can even go any further, I mean, one of the first Americans to play, except for Barrasso, we figured out played 4 games for the Maple Leafs.
I think Clemenson played for them too.
Yeah, Clemenson and
Damian Rhodes.
Damian Rhodes.
Damian Rhodes.
But this is the first goalie in the history of this great franchise to play his first NHL game and get a shutout. Yeah. He goes out there, and he gets some help for sure. He gets some pixie dust, as the coach said, which is true, which is a really weird way of putting it. But he comes up, and Mike, you've covered him in, for the Marlies too, which has got so it's got to be especially nice for you to see him get this because it's fun when you cover guys in the AHL and they come up and they do it.
It is.
And you see them get to succeed. But then he goes on the ice after the game and breaks down, and that's just like talking about his parents and all that stuff. To me, this is just like this. It kind of like renews your faith in the world. Like to me, like when something like this happens, like because it's just there's so much crap and in the hockey world sometimes, and there's so many people that you just. Most people in hockey are awesome, but there are definitely people who aren't. And when you see somebody like this, it's just so legitimate, real emotion. So now, Mike, you can go on.
And he's a good kid, and it's a good story. A 7th round pick from 2011.
Yeah.
Last year he remarked yesterday before the game that at this time last year he was on a 12-game. 30-day road trip with the Orlando Solar Bears.
How awesome is that? I mean,
and a year later, he's starting his first NHL start. And Mike Babcock, like you said, he remarked that he had a couple friends, namely the post and the crossbar, on a couple shots. But you can't take it away from him. And he was understandably emotional about the sacrifice that his parents have made, and that's the story of a lot of hockey players is that the sacrifice that their parents make to get them to where they are is unappreciated, and he did reflect that. That being said, the lack of sentimentality, and I was talking to Russ before the game, the lack of sentimentality on the part of Mike Babcock after the game was sort of remarkable. Not, and I don't think he was mean. He kept things in proper context. He was pleased with the way the team played in front of him, and pleased that Sparks got the victory. But then in the next breath, he said, well, James Reimer is starting on Wednesday if he's healthy. Mm-hmm. So he's keeping this in check. The only way Sparks plays on Wednesday is if Reimer is not healthy and Sparks is coming off a shutout, so he'll play him. But more than likely, and I think Sparks, I heard him interviewed this morning on Toronto radio, he's expecting to get sent back down to the Marlies. I mean, because he knows the consistency of this organization, which a lot of people over the last, I'd say 3 or 4 months, have continued to pound the Leafs. When are they going to call up Nylander? When are they going to bring up some of the kids? I'm telling you right now, they are not doing it. They may bring up a guy like Nylander for 3 or 4 games for a cup of coffee. They're not bringing him up to play 40 games. They're going to keep these young players down in the minors and let them mature, let them learn how to play. Hope the Marlies win a Calder Cup, and then next year, some of those players will get a legitimate opportunity. But right now, a guy like Garret Sparks, it's a great story and a very, very heartwarming. But they're going to keep to their plan.
Mike, the Calder Cup is going through Bridgeport this year, all right? So let's not get carried away. With former Marley goalie Christopher Gibson, who's been outstanding down there.
Yeah, Gibson's been good. Here's the thing. All right, so Sparks I remember covering in World Junior Camp, and I think he was the 3rd-ranked guy, and I saw a little something in him, but, I've been tracking him this whole time just because of that, right? I didn't know him before, and I knew him after. I watched a lot of that game. I enjoyed it. I would say that the Leafs are really going out of their way to suck the joy out of this situation, because that was one of the best Leaf moments that I could recall in like the last 5 years.
Right.
Touching moments on the ice, and they couldn't have thrown cold water on it quicker. And I get the consistency part, Mike. I do. But let it breathe a little. This is a great story. Let it get a little bit more legs.
Well, that's because Babcock and Lamoriello have no human emotion.
I know.
They're Terminators. You could see like the computer processing in their eyes.
Yeah.
Now, Joe Bowen, right? Who's the play-by-play guy on the radio? Correct.
Yes.
Okay, he came on XM and he was really excited. He was like the first. I was really happy to hear like somebody actually go on and say how awesome this was, and just like literally say, this is one of these all-time Leaf moments for him. And it's said in the last decade, when have you been moved to tears by anything in that building besides
their play,
right, and where they're going to pick in the draft, right? So,
but I and to Dan's point, I don't think it was the organization. I don't think it was like the people after the game. I don't think it was the fans that were like sort of pouring cold water on this. I think it was simply Babcock keeping things real. It's like he was happy for Sparks. He thought he had a good performance, but it's not going to change the plan. They're going to, if Reimer is healthy, Reimer's the number 1 goalie right now because he's played well consistently, and if Reimer is not available, then Sparks will make the next start.
Okay, but here's my point. Like, it's if healthy, right? So you could wait a day and breathe for a day. Yes. You didn't have to immediately say, well, if Reimer's healthy, forget this guy. You didn't
Babcock could have said, you know what, we'll reevaluate Wednesday tomorrow. Obviously, James is our guy, but if he's not ready to go, I got no problem putting this kid back in net.
Correct.
He was asked the question, but the thing is, and this is the thing, in Toronto, you cannot leave things open.
No, but what Dan just said is the answer.
Yep.
Yeah, well, but see, the thing is, all that does is 24 hours later, you have a 3-man goalie controversy.
Because then you squash it. Reimer's healthy. He's in goal tomorrow.
There comes a point at which this staying on message, Republican Party-esque Maple Leafs organization.
Oh, come on. Here we go.
It just needs to start respecting their fans a little bit more than this.
I mean, there's more joy coming out of Montreal about Condon starting the Winter Classic in his hometown. They're embracing that.
Give some respect. I mean, some respect to the fans. That the fans know that this guy is not in the Hall of Fame yet. They realize that this guy is. But to me, there's so much, and like you say, Mike, you can't give the fans any bit of, oh man, maybe this is our guy. Maybe Meanwhile, they got a Russian kid who has a hat trick last night, right? Which is really kind of the bigger story in Toronto is what I don't want to say.
Well, he's not.
Kovalev all the time. Komarov is Finnish, but he's kind of crazy. He was born in.
He's born in Estonia, which is one of the Baltic republics, but he plays for Finland, and he
speaks 5 languages. Komarov.
And you know what the thing is, Komarov is a good story. He's now leading the Leafs in scoring, which I don't think anybody in their right mind ever thought was going to happen. He's a tough 2-way player. He's in double figures in goals now. He's a guy who's locked up for a couple more years, so I don't think they're anxious to this is not a guy that I think that the organization is going to be anxious to move. He's one of the guys I think that they'll keep and that Babcock likes. So he's sort of a even though he's 28 years old, he's more of a not a building block, but a guy who's a good role player who can probably when this team is good is a third line guy, but he's taking the opportunity. And the funny thing is, Zach, you've got Komarov, who's been on their number one line for almost the entire season. James Van Riemsdyk, who's been on the number one line for the entire season. Van Riemsdyk has 10 goals. Van Riemsdyk has 7 goals. Komarov has 10 goals.
Right.
Nazem Kadri is the number one center. He has 6 assists, meaning that he's not doing anything to set these guys up for goals. Which Kadri scored his 3rd goal last night on a tip-in.
I was going to say he looked good last night, so it's not. You can't continually whip this guy for. I mean, again, he doesn't have the load of talent around him either.
Well, yeah, but he's operating on the number one line, and he's not helping his wingers. He's supposed to be a playmaker, and he's not helping his wingers score. I actually think, and if up until yesterday, and I think Bozak is still the leader in scoring on the team. I actually think Bozak has had a better year, and he's playing on a third line right now. But that being said, I mean, all I'm saying is, it was a great.
The thing is, there's a skill set to put a guy at, and they're trying to see if Kadri is a top liner. Nobody ever said he was a guaranteed top liner. Nobody.
I think no. He said he was John Tavares.
Yeah. And
sorry.
Here's what he said. I'm just saying, draft people never said he was a guaranteed top liner. A top 6 guy, yeah, perhaps, and that's where he has to play. But the thing is, Bozak, you can't put Bozak on the top line. You never would. So he's just playing where he should be. I still think this guy gets way too much criticism. I'm not saying he's having a good year, and I'm not saying he's having a terrible year. But he could score a goal, and people could still criticize him. That's the amazing part.
And Russ, my point is, and I've heard this point made before, but I think it's sort of strange. Every coach has their favorites, and every coach has their players that they beat up on more. A guy like Peter Holland was benched for 4 games because of basically uninspired play. He comes back, he starts scoring, he's gotten his way out of the doghouse. Phaneuf and Kadri specifically have been really pumped up by Babcock. He's been overly effusive in his praise of those 2 players. To an extent, I think Phaneuf deserves it. I think he's playing better in a sort of more of a secondary role. Kadri, not so much. And the thing is, you've got players like that, but then you turn to Bernier, and I mean the defense in front of him is still not great. He's letting in some bad goals, and Babcock has been openly just critical of Bernier. So, I mean, it's sort of this duality, this double-edged sword with Babcock, and I think it's sort of like, you've got one guy who's on a contract for another year, and you're calling up Garret Sparks, and you're going with James Reimer, and you're not giving him an opportunity to unbury himself from the slump that he's in right now. But Nazem Kadri, who does almost nothing for most of the season, has got 3 goals on the number 1 line, and he's in the top 10 of NHL shots on goal. This guy is the best forward on the team. It doesn't add up.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. I mean, let's face it, and Bowen said it too in his interview today. He said that they don't know where this team's going to be right now. They're playing if they keep playing like they're going to be playing, they're going to be right on that border of the playoffs. So it's going to be a battle to see.
This game last night broke a 3-game losing streak.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
They are what they are. They're a bottom 5 team, and but the key thing here is that Babcock is getting good effort and is promoting good structure for a team limited in talent. And what's going to happen is in January they're going to start trading players like P.A. Parento, like Brad Boyes, like Roman Polak, like James Reimer off the roster. And they will call up some players from the American Hockey League. They'll probably get some players in return from some deals. They'll get some salary dumps. And that's what's going to happen. This team is going to be in the bottom 5. It's not going to happen this year. The organization knows that. They just can't go out and say, we're going to lose, because you just can't do that. But that's, I think, where they are.
Yeah.
If I was a team that had a coach that is willing to work with young players, I would trade for Nazem Kadri. I would. Because I think in the right role, he could still be a good NHL player. Not a great one, People are going to sort of hold him to being like the 7th overall guy, so he's got to be a top liner and 80 points. Not everybody is, but I think he could be a really decent NHL player. And I just think, again, he can't do anything right or wrong in Toronto. Even if the coach is backing him, it doesn't matter because people are going to just pick away at him.
You know where I would go if I, as far as coaches that would work best with Kadri, and this is interesting because this is not my favorite coach in the NHL, but I really think he'd work well with Kadri, is Peter Laviolette.
I can see that.
I think Kadri in Nashville could be dangerous. Laviolette.
That's exactly what I was thinking because I think Kadri reminds me of Mike Ribeiro a little bit.
Yeah, and Laviolette he's not so hard on younger players making mistakes as a lot of coaches. He'll live through it if that player is giving him offense. Like if you watch Philip Forsberg last year, Philip Forsberg made plenty of defensive lapses, but he stuck with him and let him play. Like Philip Forsberg this year, where he's not scoring as much, is definitely an issue. But last year he gave him the outs quite often there.
There is a history between Toronto and Nashville in terms of making trades, and I will point out, and I continue to think this, and we talked about Jimmy Vesey before. I have a feeling that instead of, and this happened in a minor deal with a player called named Zach Hyman, who was Michigan's leading scorer last year, who was represented by Kyle Dubas before Kyle Dubas became became general manager in the OHL, and then there were rumors before at the end of last season that they wanted to bring Hyman in. They ended up trading a minor leaguer to get Hyman from Florida before his contractual obligation expired. I have a feeling what's going to happen with Vesey if Nashville knows that he's bound and determined to go to Toronto, and this is during the summer. I mean, probably nothing will happen until then. If they know that he's probably going to go to Toronto, Toronto will trade something to get his rights before going open season. And letting him field offers someplace else. And I wouldn't put it past him, not to say it would be a 1-for-1, but I'm thinking, if a guy like Kadri is involved, where Nashville is looking for offensive players, that would add up. I mean, I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1. I mean, you probably would have to include a defenseman, one of the many defensemen that Nashville has, but that's a plausible thing, I think.
Let's talk.
To the other side is, though, we had somebody from Nashville on our show last week who they're very confident BC signing with them. So I can't go down that road yet after they're saying that. They must have some hint that they have a chance, or they wouldn't come out on our show on XM and say it.
I've been hearing that all year. That's at least Nashville's attitude about it. They said that they had a very good conversation with him at camp, and that they were very confident, and they didn't feel like they were just being given the business. So sometimes Nashville is overconfident about stuff like this in the past. I've seen it where they feel like they're being given the business, but
what is he supposed to say? Is he supposed to say?
Right, but these are smart players. I mean, these are smart people you're talking to here in Nashville. They know this. They get that. They're not, they get the fact that he's going to say nice things. It's beyond that. It goes beyond that. They have experience with players in Nashville. Plenty of players like this in Nashville to know what's working. But let's talk about American goalies, for crying out loud. All right, let's give it up for young American goalies. We always talk about,
suck it, Mike.
We always talk about Sparks.
I'm American.
You're in Buffalo. That doesn't even count.
I mean, Sparks is like the third.
I'm kidding. All Buffalo. I'm kidding.
Our three young goalies for Team USA, maybe in the Olympics, 2 Olympics from now, could be Sparks, could be Hellebuyck, and could be Gibson.
Well,
and these guys.
Let's not put.
No, I'm not putting Sparks as the top guy, but I'm saying he could be.
Put him in that conversation. You have Gillies, and there's so many other American goalies.
But I'm just saying we got lots. And I'm not. Listen,
well,
I'm just saying.
Come on.
Let's talk Gibson. Okay.
Let's say this, Ak.
Mm-hmm.
For the 2016 Young Guns World Cup team, it's more than likely that the two goalies are going to be Hellebuyck and Gibson, because I don't see anybody else on the radar, that would be a candidate. Maybe Fucale, if he all of a sudden got some starts with Montreal and he was impressive. But I think it's going to be those guys. That's a commentary on how good the U.S. is producing goalies.
How old is Condon?
25.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if he qualified or not.
Yeah. No, I mean, and there's others too. I mean, there's others as well. I mean, American is putting out some goalies. I mean, we are really
American and Finland.
Yeah, it's no question. I mean,
Finland not as much lately, believe it or
No,
not.
but yeah, over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
But so Gibson comes out. Gibson returns to the NHL, kind of triumphantly and kind of at the perfect time for Anaheim, despite him getting there only because of injuries, because they really wanted to give him more time in the AHL,
Right.
and which is one of these things that I'm just, I really want to understand better. And I know I bother Russ with this all the time, but this is one of these things that just frustrates the heck out of me, especially with goalies, because, and I get that you can mess up a goalie. But let's think about goalies that have been messed up because they came in too early versus goalies who came in
Andrew Raycroft.
Rick DiPietro.
Rick DiPietro. There are some for sure, but there's also ones who come in early and just stay really good goalies. Like
Tom Barrasso started as an 18-year-old.
Patrick Waugh was really young, right?
Dan Blackburn started as an 18-year-old. I don't know if you could blame the injury on him because he wasn't fully developed. It's possible. You never know.
No, and all these things are true, but Gibson has always been mature. Like he's always been ultra mature, right? I mean, even in juniors, he was considered mature for his age, and he came in last year, or 2 years ago, or what was it last year or 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago now.
I think 2 years ago for a cup, and then last year more consistently. I think.
Right.
Yeah, he was hurt most of last year.
But I have to point out, Ak, is the fact that he did get a shutout last night against Vancouver, but over the weekend, Anaheim had a 2-0 lead against Chicago with 2 minutes left to go in regulation. Hossa and Keith score in the last 2 minutes. One of the goals was really bad in terms of Gibson.
Yeah.
And then I think it was Anisimov or Panarin scored in overtime. They blew a 2-0 lead in the third period, and Gibson was in goal. So, I mean, he's done better than Anderson has done in total for the year. And I don't think that Khudobin is really an answer for them, so I think they should go with him. But he's not a savior right now.
Well, here's the problem. Again, this is the problem with this coach. John Gibson, at some point, would probably like the assurance that, hey, he is the guy. Every goalie sort of needs that, and a younger goalie especially.
Yes.
And Bruce Boudreau will never give that assurance to any goalie he ever has.
Yeah, look at Washington. It took him forever to run with Holtby.
I know. And this is a big problem.
How many times did he go back between Varlamov and Neuvirth?
I mean, I don't want to call him a goalie killer, but he's not great with goalies.
It's a great point. It's a great point, Russ. I mean, you're absolutely right. And this is really the situation in a nutshell. There. And
he is only 22. If he is going to play this well after 4 games, and they like what they see, then make the announcement and say, right now, Gibson's our number one. We'll see what happens in the future. But do something to sort of give that confidence, because otherwise you don't know, and it's tough. It's real. And look, these guys are trained to be ready at a moment's notice and everything else, but there is something to be said about, hey, I know I'm going to be in the next game if I don't do well this game.
I think, too, is the goaltending overall in Anaheim hasn't been terrible. I know Hudobin struggled, but Anderson hasn't been bad, and Gibson has been okay, too. The problem is they have none. 0 zip secondary scoring. They have none. Getzlaf has 1 goal. How many goals does Kessler have? What does Silverberg have? What does Hagelin have? What does Cogliano have? They are not scoring goals.
Cogliano's got 3. Kessler's got 3.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Hagelin's got 2. Silverberg has 2. It's disgusting.
Yep. And the funny thing is the architect of the demise of the Anaheim Ducks maybe GM Bob Murray, because how can you go out and sign Ryan Kessler to that 7-year deal for a little under $7 million? The guy was 31 years old, and we've been saying for years, even going back to when he was traded from Vancouver to Anaheim, that he was the type of guy who was going to age overnight.
Yeah, he's an old 31 because of the way he plays.
Right, and now you've got that deal for 7 more years.
Yep, good luck with that.
They were in very good shape in terms of their cap. In spite of having 2 expensive guys like Perry and Getzlaf, they were very good in terms of their managing their cap, and that's gone all out the window over the last couple of years. Because
how many goals does Getzlaf have, by the way?
He has 1.
He has 1.
Yeah, that's the crazy number.
And here's the thing, too, is now you've blown up your cap. You gave Hagelin a lot of money, and now you're going to have to pay Lindholm and Vatanen at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, I think one of them's going. I think, unfortunately.
They're both really good, too.
I know.
And also they made a really big mistake with Bieksa. I mean, there's no question about it. Like, Bieksa just can't play. I mean, talking to people out there, that he is just very much struggling, and Vancouver knew that this was coming. Like Vancouver saw it last year, and it's just they made a huge mistake signing Bieksa. We all thought wow.
Yeah. And in this instance, it was weighing the option of paying Boschman for 4 years or trading and signing Bieksa for 2 years, and they thought that that it was a safer calculation to go with Bieksa for 2. But the problem is Bieksa probably is done already,
Right.
and Boschman has always worked well in Anaheim.
Yeah,
because
the kind of defenseman they are, Boschman,
in Colorado.
Right. But the kind of defenseman they are, Boschman can play a lot longer than Bieksa can play. Like Bieksa plays on the edge. Like he really does play. And if you lose your edge, if you're a player that plays on the edge and you lose that edge, you're in trouble.
But here's the thing: things that worked last year are not working this year, right? Patrick Maroon somehow last year, what do you have, like 20 goals? Now he's back to 1, and he's got 4 points. Like he's back to being Patrick Maroon. So it's really hard to gauge. Is it the players? Is it the coach? Is it the GM? I still think it's the coach. I have to go back to the coach. I know the players could do better, but I think it's the coach.
But look at the exodus from last year. Smith, Pelly, Palmieri, Bolesky. I mean, they had this Emerson Edom. They had this lower level third, fourth line where we get contributions out of. They're all gone, and guys,
they're all quick too. They're all fast players.
They are fast. They're greasy, fast players. They are.
Yep.
And you bring in guys like Yuri Seacash, and you sign Chris Stewart and Mike Santorelli as these stopgaps, and they're not even close to making up the gap that those other players were. So I mean, there's the recipe of your demise. You basically gutted your organization of like your mid-level players, brought in a bunch of mercenaries, and I'm saying mercenary because they're 1-year contracts.
Right.
And I mean, there you go.
Russ, what do they have in the pipeline? They have any help in the middle? Like they could help in the middle six or could provide some secondary scoring?
Well, they traded a lot of that too.
Right.
I mean, Raquel. They thought Raquel was going to step up and.
Raquel's got 6 goals. I like.
Yeah,
Raquel,
he's been okay. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But he's never going to be more than like a 18-goal guy. Like he's just not going to be.
And they called up their first-round pick. Was it Richie?
Yeah, Richie again is still a work in progress. I like him. I don't know how long it'll take for him to come around. I like Brandon Montour a lot, their defenseman, right? So he's not coming up, but the point is, can they trade one of these young defensemen? The answer is yes, because they do have guys in the pipeline. But Shea Theodore, they really don't have scorers in the pipeline. The best scorer I could tell you that is nowhere near ready is probably Kurt Isles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's
And he's got 7 points in 19 games, which for Anaheim that would be great, but that's for the goals right now. So
Well, this is the genesis of all the Cam Fowler rumors, because if they need to sign Vatanen and Lindholm, they can only afford probably to sign 2 of them. And if they clear out Fowler and get something back for him, then they can lock those kids up long term. But I don't think they can have three defensemen who are making $4 to $5 million a year. Not with Perry and Getzlaf and Kessler making the money that they're making so long term.
Well, yeah, and look, and Montour's got 21 points in the A, and Theodore's got 11. Montour might be ready by next year, so somebody can go.
Yeah.
For a fix this season, I'm not saying long term, but for a fix this season, would Kyle Oposo fit there?
Yeah, he would. He definitely would. I mean,
this is why the Hamonic stuff to Anaheim started, right? Because there was a lot of thinking that does make sense, but it doesn't make any sense for Hamonic.
Yeah.
Unless they're moving him on from there.
Yeah, exactly. How does that make sense? I mean, is there an Anaheim to Winnipeg direct flight?
Right. No, but if I'm Anaheim, I might call San Jose and Carolina and trade one of my impending UFAs for one of their impending UFAs. Right. I think what's his name has 2 years on his deal for San Jose, Marlowe. But still, I mean, I might do that, and that may be their only way out of this, because even though Kessler says, "Hey, we're going to make the playoffs," I don't know, because they're going to probably keep swapping out goalies, and they're not scoring enough goals, and that puts a lot of pressure on the defense and the goalie. It just does.
In that division, Russ, I think they will make the playoffs because it's so weak, and there's three. I mean, I think I still don't know if Vancouver's for real, and you know that it's probably going to be LA is the guaranteed one, and Anaheim probably will make it, and then it's a fight between Calgary, Vancouver, and San Jose for the third spot. I think I'm still not buying into San Jose. I'm sorry.
I'm going to tell you, Vancouver is going to have to make a decision. I think it's around either December 19th or December 23rd on what their season's going to be.
Yep.
To see if they let Jared McCann and Jake Cannon go and play for Team Canada, because if they do, they're giving up their season.
Right.
Yeah, and they've got two prominent pending UFAs in Verbata and Hamus, who, if they let those kids go, and that's to say they're writing off the season.
Guys, I'm sorry, I have a hockey rumor coming in right now.
Okay.
Hold on.
Just mute yourself, Ak.
Yep.
But yeah, if they let those kids go to play for Canada, then more than likely they're on a realistic. They're looking at it realistically that they're not going to, they may sneak in, but that they're not going to go for it in a sense.
Yeah.
And
it's a tough decision. And
yeah.
Benning's in a tough spot because everybody knows Benning is he likes the youth and he's about the future, but he does have a season ticket base to sort of look at, and he's got ownership to answer to, and I happen to think if they're right on the edge, they're going to end up keeping those kids, because at the end of the day, I think the NHL is going to sort of win out in that one rather than them trying to get a gold medal.
And Russ, you know what? Like I said, I was looking this morning because Team Canada announced their selections, and Dan, boy, the Islanders, Del Cole and Bouvier, thank you very much. And there was one other.
Barzell.
Matthew Barzell. So they were loaded. The Leafs had 2 picks, but the thing is, there are not many instances for Canada, at least. I think Virtanen and McCann are the only 2 that are players who could go to play for Team Canada in the World Juniors that are currently in the NHL. The others are. I mean, I don't think there are any others that are candidates.
No others that I could think of off the top of my head. I'll tell you, we just had Eric Cairns on our show, and we talked about Barzell. We didn't even bring up Del Cole. No, did we? No, we did bring up Del Cole and Bouvier. We did bring up all 3. And my feeling is that, believe it or not, Bouvier and Barzell are going to be locks. And Del Cole's probably going to have to prove himself because of the slow start he had to the season. He did well in the Super Series. He's doing well and better now.
Yeah, it seems like he's picked it up.
He has picked it up, but he's going to have to show them that it's continuing, because he would have been a lock otherwise. And I think now, he's probably going to make it, but he has to prove himself. On the defensive end, though, I don't know if Jacob Chychrun is I don't know if he's making it. I think they're inviting him there so he has the experience. Yeah. I think it's going to be very tough for that kid to make it. I'm watching a little bit more of him lately, and he's coming back off a shoulder injury, which is tough. So that's one thing.
Right.
The Ekblad comparison I don't see for one reason. He's not as physical as Ekblad, and he's a good two-way guy, but Ekblad was a better defender in my eyes. He's really good offensively, terrific offensively.
He reminds me more of a Bouwmeester than an Ekblad.
Yeah, I see that a little bit more too. I would agree with you on that.
And that's not an insult, because for the first 10 years of Bouwmeester's career, he was an outstanding player.
Yeah, I mean,
of the 11 defensemen that Team Canada chose, I think 7 of them were 19 years old. There were only 2 or 3 that were 18 years old, and Chychrun was 17. But
I'll tell you, Dubois could make it as a 17-year-old because he's big and he really does play a full game, and he was good on. He wasn't fantastic, but he was good on the under-18 team. So I think he has a legit shot. I think Chychrun has an outside shot, and I think Gauthier has 0 shot because he plays no defense. He's got 23 goals in 27 games, but you have to sort of do your math with the Q and say how many of those would he have in the other leagues, and he doesn't play defense.
And I think the 8th defenseman might come down to 2 guys who I watched play against each other in St. Catharines a couple weeks ago. Was Vince Dunn from Niagara and Travis Dermott from Erie, and they're tied for the OHL lead in defensive scoring. I personally think that Dermott's a more rounded player.
I think so too. So too. But for some reason, I think he's on the bubble. But I agree with you. I like him a little better as well.
Now the funny thing is, Russ, the team that might benefit from players playing in the NHL getting sent to play for them in the World Juniors is Team USA. I mean, we brought up Noah Hannafin. I think it's a possibility that that Carolina would let him play for the World Juniors. I don't think there's a chance of Eichel or Dylan Larkin, but
no, probably not.
No, they're not going. But I think Hannafin will go because I think Carolina will look at it and say, yeah, we're not making the playoffs. I just want to go back 1 minute because I really like the Joe Hickett story. I know we brought him up a while back, and everybody thinks he's a lock because his coach is the coach and everything else. But he is a really good player, and he's probably under more scrutiny now because his regular, coach from the regular season is a coach for Team Canada. But at 5'8", undrafted, I got to tell you, this is where the Red Wings really do set themselves apart because a lot of the reason that people didn't basically go and scout Hicketts is because he played in a faraway place. And it was hard to get to him. And now Nate Seeger actually wrote on my Facebook page that it's a $60 fee just to get to the island to watch him play. So, and he thinks that actually kept away some scouts, and he could be right. I don't know.
Well, and you made an interesting point before the show. I think it was the three top scorers in the OHL are American.
Americans. I can never remember that happening ever.
Yeah, the fourth player is Mitch Marner, who's I think a point behind a couple of them, and plays on the same line with two of them, so it'll sort of be tough.
Yeah, but, and Strome plays with with one of them, and so I did put a hashtag Teammates Matter because. But I really do think these guys are worthy. Christian Dvorak, if memory serves me, was snubbed last year.
Yeah.
Off the team. If he gets snubbed this year, I will go ballistic.
I can't imagine. I mean, I'm assuming DeBrincat and Dvorak and Tkachuk are all making it. It wouldn't make sense if they did.
Listen, this is Team USA we're talking about.
Right.
What might make sense to you might be different there, but Dvorak is certainly like I wanted him to make it last year. He had a heck of a year last year too, and.
This draft is going to be a big USA draft too.
It will be.
Oh yeah. Let's just switch a little bit here because Russ, before the webcast started, I saw there was a note about Kevin Kline for the Rangers being out. I think they said for 3 or 4 weeks.
There goes the. See, actually, I give the Rangers credit because during the game they said muscle strain.
Right.
But the problem was, once I heard it was in the abdomen, I'm like, okay, this is way worse than just a muscle strain.
Right.
And now it sounds like, it's a core injury, right? So it's bad for a defenseman. Who knows if we'll have to get surgery or not? They'll never tell us. Right. And so now this is a situation where this is really going to test the Rangers because they have Brady Shea in the AHL, and he's playing very well.
Mm-hmm.
He is.
Are you going to continue to go with Boyle and McElrath all the time, or now you're going to bring up Shea, or are you going to bring up Rafael Diaz, who has been sitting there all year and has played in the NHL and amazingly has said nothing.
Yeah.
And the guy can bring offense. He was bad in the preseason. Maybe he got things together. One of those guys probably has to come up.
Russ, what are your thoughts on McElrath?
Here's my thought. Again, when you have a defenseman that's mainly going to be a fighter and an agitator, every time he's out for 5 minutes or 15 minutes, you've shortened the defensive pairings. And like when Klein would play with Yandel, they look like they've never played together before. So that was a problem. His defense has been okay, but to me, it's not enough to keep him in the lineup.
Okay.
Dan Boyle still has value on the power play, and he's played a little better lately. So I could see where you would rotate him in, but I still can't see playing him every game. That's going to be the problem with Dan Boyle now. And Girardi slowed down a step, so you almost need an injection of youth and speed. And I don't know. I mean, I probably would go with Shea and give him his tryout before I would go with Diaz, to be honest.
Ack, you back?
I am back. Yeah, it's interesting. I will say this has to do with Montreal, and which is always kind of intriguing to me. Not a goalie, which some people were speculating on that they might go after an experienced goalie, but not a goalie.
Yeah, Bergevin poured cold water on that yesterday, and honestly, I know that they sent Tokarski down to St. John's and called up Fucale, but they basically did that because Tokarski hadn't played any games, and I think they want him to be sharp, and I think they want Fucale to play every day in the AHL. So for a week Tokarski can play 3 games and then come back up and back up Condon and step in every once in a while. But they have more. I mean, Brendan Gallagher is out. Price is out.
Yeah.
Alexander Semin has been a failure there. I mean, a pretty dramatic failure. And I know that they have some other injuries. I know they've been calling up a lot of guys from St. John's, Bud Holloway, Daniel Carr. They've been calling. It's been going back and forth. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make a deal for even like not a stopgap guy, but a depth forward.
This seems to be a bigger.
Eric Stahl would be a good fit there.
Yeah, that's been mentioned. This was not that. This is more like a second line forward that they're looking at.
I could see them doing that before the goalie thing because I think they have to at least give Condon a chance based on the way he's played this year. And why do it now? The price is going to be higher now. I mean, their record is so good.
Right.
I think they'd have to lose quite a few games for them to go get a goalie.
Yeah, Semin hasn't worked, but he was a cheap roll of the dice.
Right.
So I think you can replace him pretty easily.
The only way they're doing this now is if the value is there for them to do.
Right.
Semin could be involved in this, though, I was told, because the cap.
Is there really another team on earth that wants him?
Depends on what you're looking to do. Like, if you're a team that has the cap space, so to speak.
Oh, so the Leafs. He'll go to the Leafs.
Yep. I honestly would not doubt. Okay. This has been my
Can't say much else.
No. This has been my belief. This has been my belief all along. When it comes to the Leafs, when it comes to just before the deadline, right now they have $6 million under the salary cap. They are the only team in the bottom 10 of the league right now in terms of cap space that will use it. Most of the other teams are budget teams like New Jersey, teams like Arizona, that they're on a budget. They will not use that cap space unless it's an expiring contract. The Leafs are going to use every single dollar to get every single prospect, draft pick they can get their hands on, and they're going to use every trick in the book, legal, like putting a player on long-term injury like they did with Nathan Horton, like I think they will do with Stefan Robida unless he comes back. But that's what's going to happen, and they will take on contracts from other teams. Like if Chicago wants to trade Brian Bickle at the deadline and open up $3 million in cap space, I will bet you the Leafs will be one of the teams that would be willing to do that if they get a first-round pick or if they get a prospect.
Well, Montreal won't trade a first-round pick. I can tell you that.
Right.
No, they won't.
No, there's no way of that. But, they would trade a prospect for sure. I'm wondering, though, what is Semin's contract? What is it, like $1.5 million?
Yeah, 1 year, 1.1, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nothing ridiculous, but if it's $1.5 million in dead money that you've already signed off on, that he's not going to be good. I mean,
we'll look at it this way: it's $1.5 million less of whatever player you're picking up.
Right. Exactly.
So like Montreal has $1.5 million to play with there.
Yeah.
And they still, they're not. I don't think they're completely capped out either. They've got a little bit of money to play with.
No, they have room.
They have a little bit of room.
But this gives them another $1.5 million to play with, which gives them an option of getting, like I said, more into a top 6 role than like a third liner. This is more.
Yeah. The only thing is, though, from the Leafs, they're getting a center, so that would cause a little bit of an issue because their injuries haven't been on because those guys are centers that we're talking about, correct?
They have almost $2 million in cap space.
I did not say it was the Leafs, by the way.
No, you didn't. But
No,
Mike, I mean, they'd be inheriting a center whether they play the guy at the wing or move somebody else like Galchenyuk back to the wing. They'd have to fit him in somehow.
Well, I mean, Semin's a winger, right? I mean,
yeah, Simmons is a wing. He's a winger.
Yeah,
right.
But yeah, I mean, see, they haven't.
The guys, unless Van Riemsdyk were available, are all going to be centers, right?
Yeah.
I forget Lupul's.
Lupul, who was just placed on injured reserve.
So nobody's taking.
There it is.
Yeah, for the first time this year, but it's not a serious injury. It's just a tweak.
Yeah.
Another thing I've been hearing a lot of is Medvedev to the Capitals. That there is a big push, by Ovechkin to bring Medvedev down there.
He has not worked out in Philly, right, Ed?
I wouldn't say that. No, you see.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it hasn't worked out. He kind of is what he is. He's not.
Right.
He's not dazzling by any stretch of the imagination. But he at the same time has moments where he looks like an experienced defenseman on a team that doesn't have experience.
Good in almost every game he's been in. I'll be honest.
But he has his moments where he looks slow too. Like he's not. He looks older. Like there's no question about it that he's not you can tell that he's had better years. Like he came here after his height of his career. I think that's what it feels like to me. But at the same time, he also is smart enough that he knows where to be. He knows how to make plays. He takes good chances. He doesn't make stupid plays very often. He is but Ovechkin apparently absolutely loves him. And
is there a need for a defenseman in Washington?
Yeah, because Nate Schmidt and I think was it Michael Latta, and I can't remember the other guy.
Latta's their other guy, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw them play on Saturday. They weren't exactly very impressive. So getting a defenseman like they did last year, they picked up Tim Gleason at the deadline. He's a good working bottom pairing guy. And if they think they have a need for a defenseman, I mean maybe he's a good pairing with Orlov.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he would be. If I were the Flyers, if I was going to trade Medvedev, and that would cure their little bit of defensive logjam that they're about to have, and then would give guys more of a look for sure. If I were going to do that, I would say, sure, just give me Riley Barber.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean that's
what I'd hold him up for.
Yeah, I mean that would be interesting to see what they could do. One last thing quickly before we go. I wanted to talk about Team Canada's selection of and I'll write more about this rumor as I get more stuff today. I have a couple more people I have to call right away after we get out of here. But Canada has made their selection, Team Canada selection camp roster for the World Junior Championships.
Yeah, we were talking about it when you were on.
You were okay, good.
Yeah, we did. Yep.
All right, well then I don't need to get into
it. And it was outstanding.
It's a great roster, except for goaltending, right? I mean, nothing personal against the Canadian goaltending, but.
I mean, they aren't big names, but I'll tell you this: Blackwood is a battler, and he's very physical, and he really is technically good. And McDonald is big, and he's fast for his size. McDonald has the bigger name, but it wouldn't shock me if Blackwood could win it. But either way, I think they're good enough. I think when you're just solid with Canada, like look, Justin Pogge won a gold medal. Not to say these guys are Justin Pogge. I think they're better, but I'm just pointing it out. You just have to be solid.
Well, and I think they're loaded up front. I mean, you have Marner and Strome and Konechny, and it's a really good group.
When you have a roster like that, the Canadian goalie just needs to make the saves he's supposed to make.
And you should be mentioning Barzal in the same breath with those guys because the vision on that kid's fantastic.
I wasn't slighting him, believe me.
I know. But some people don't. Some people don't mention him that way.
I really think he can make the Islanders roster next year.
He has a chance.
Yeah, honestly, I think though, and it'll be very exciting to watch, and I'm looking forward to it more than any World Junior I've looked to in recent history. Because I think Team USA, if they make the right choices, Russ, it will be up there with Team Canada in terms of the talent and competition. I think the Swedes will be very good, but that'll all depend on whether the Leafs allow Nylander to go back, and I still haven't been able to get any kind of definitive answer from them regarding.
Why wouldn't they?
I still think he's going to go. And I can't see them if Kapanen is going to make Team Finland. I can't see them not letting him go when it's being played in Helsinki. But I haven't been able to ask that question.
And you think Rantanen will go? I know he's playing in the A, but he'll go.
Yeah, I would think he would go too. Yeah, the Finns could be pretty good.
And Finland will be the most interesting one if both Puljujärvi and Patrick Lane make that team.
But they're going to make the team. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, because those are two players right now who will arguably be in the top 5 or 6 in next June's draft in Buffalo. And I mean, I'm sure NHL teams know a lot about them, but the fans have not seen them a ton. And it'll be interesting to see them in game.
Those guys and Rantanen, they'll be formidable.
They absolutely will be, yeah.
Because they will at least have 2 lines with size and skill and speed. Mm-hmm. And that's, in the World Juniors, if you get defense and you're scrappy and you have goaltending, like Finland always seems to have, that's going to put them in it.
Yep.
Russ, am I wrong that the Russians have fallen back?
Yeah, I think they've fallen back again, too. I think...
Their goaltending should be solid this year, though.
Yeah, their goaltending will be good.
Their goaltending didn't really impress at the Super
No, it wasn't great last time, and I thought it would be better. I picked Russia, and they just miserably failed.
What's amazing, though, to me in general, is that they haven't fallen back more.
Right.
Just based on the economy and what's happened in Russia in the last.
Yeah, they miserably failed last time though, so there's no way I'm picking them this time. But I gotta look.
That's right.
How old's Sorokin?
I'm trying to think if he's 19 or 20. I think he's 20.
I think he's 20.
He's played outstanding over there.
He's had an amazing year. Like I got to see.
Really has.
I don't even know what channel it is. There's a channel on FiOS that actually shows KHL full game highlights, but not a full game. And I was watching like 4 or 5 games of Sorokin, and boy, he really. Now again, the funny thing about the KHL is there's no defense. So if you're a goalie, it's a shooting gallery.
Yeah, he's 20.
Yeah, so he's too old.
Do you think he'd maybe come over next year?
Well, I mean, I think Washington's first round pick is going to be their goalie.
Oh yeah, I think so.
I think he'd come over if he had some assurances that he'd be at least the backup.
No, okay, there's no assurance of that right now.
But act to your point, I don't see the Russians produce. I don't see another Ovechkin. I don't see another Malkin. I think the last great player they've produced is Tarasenko. I mean, I don't see these.
Kuznetsov is great.
Yeah, he is.
I think he's very good. I'm waiting for the greatness. I'm just.
He's very good. He might not be great, but he's very
close.
good.
It's really close. Yeah, he might not be great yet, but I think he has greatness in him.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not like that Russian machine that we used to churn out the McGillneys and the Berets and the Fedorovs, and every year there was 1 or 2 Russian. I mean, Nikushkin is a pretty good player. He's been dogged by injuries, but he's starting to come around finally.
He's starting to come around. I put him next in line. There's, again, you mentioned him before, Panarin. I mean,
Right.
He's Russian. He might not have been on the radar, but he's a heck of a player. He could win the Calder. If it ended tomorrow, he might. So
yeah.
I mean, Russ, my greater point is that NHL teams are going through the KHL and finding diamonds in the rough, and Panarin was one of them. And maybe this Zaitsev defenseman, who the Leafs and Flyers have talked about the last couple of years, who'll be the next one. But it's not like these overwhelming, oh my God, we got to draft this guy first overall type of Russian player.
Well, the world there is changing, and Europe as a whole is changing. You're seeing more players coming out of countries like Switzerland and Denmark and Austria, and you're seeing the Czech Republic fall off. The Czechs used to pop out unbelievable players.
The most.
The Slovaks are still there, but now they're not what they used to be. It's almost like the formation of European hockey is shifting, where the Finns and the Swedes are reliable, but then you're having teams like Denmark and Austria and Switzerland and even Germany. They're starting to produce good players.
Are producing more too.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, I think I'm being told this by insiders again and people who know about what's going on in Russia. The last couple of years, the Russian Ice Hockey Federation is just a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a mess.
I've heard this too. Yeah, and the economy. And when you think of where the players who would be like draft eligible now are 15, 16, 17. You go back 15 years in Russia, things were really bad.
Yes.
Things are bad now in Russia too, but they were really bad then.
Yeah, and I'm not to go into the geopolitical situation, but that doesn't help either. When there was a KHL team in the Ukraine and it has to be shut down because there's a war going on.
Right. I mean, there's so much unrest, and that so sports and getting your kids to play hockey doesn't make the top of your priority list for the lives.
Exactly. Survival does.
Yep.
I wanted to talk briefly, and then we got to go. But about Colin White. Did you guys get into him at all?
No.
Colin White, no.
From Boston College, who now has 21 points, which is the same amount of points that Jack Eichel had at this point last year for Boston College. And he's an American. I think, is he from Boston as well?
Yep, he's from Massachusetts.
Right, and then the Bruins
or something.
Right, and of course he's a draft pick of the Ottawa Senators. The Bruins had.
He had those 3 picks, and he should have been one of them.
Let him go by, which is unbelievable. It has to be.
And they passed on Barzell 3 times.
Right, but this kid, I mean, their own backyard, who's could be a Hobie Baker winner this year, without question. I mean, right now he's one of them.
I don't want to put words in Pierre Dorian's mouth because he came on our show, but he couldn't be happier about Colin White, and I think he realizes, especially when I said, "Boy, I was shocked that he didn't go to Boston." He didn't really say a lot, but you knew that they were really happy that didn't happen, and I still don't see how that didn't happen. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense that it didn't happen. And at the time, especially now that it's going to go, it could potentially go down as one of the biggest blunders in a long time. Like
not the trash to the players they took, but I was absolutely convinced that 2 of those 3 picks were going to be White and Barzal, and I was stunned when they went.
They could have had like White, Barzal, and Connor. Like that's who everybody kind of thought was going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
and that would have been something. And now now they're looking at White, who is going to go to their rival in Ottawa, of all places. Really is a bad scene, and yet he's kicking butt, and he'll also be a part of that, World Junior team when we talk about for America.
It's hard to kick butt like that first year, and
yeah,
it is.
I mean, this is like we're talking about Eichel and Paul Kariya, and not many other people who have done this kind of thing,
right?
And done these kind of numbers as a freshman.
Jonathan Taves.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about really,
And Taves didn't put up these kinds of numbers.
No, he didn't.
No. He was I think he was in the 40s or 50s, but White's on a pace of 70 points, 80 points.
Yeah,
that's crazy, and
it's. And just to illustrate the point, the Boston of the 3 Boston picks, only the defenseman was ranked, I think, in the teens. The rest of them.
But that's only for some. I didn't like Zobral. I didn't have him highly ranked at all.
DeBrusk was ranked at the end of the first round, and Senshin, I thought there was a chance that Toronto could get him in the 3rd because
That's what a lot of people thought. Senshin was the real reach. Everybody likes DeBrusk because he sort of does everything well, and his dad with the bloodline, so I get that one. I could forgive that one. Zobral, I just didn't like because I always felt like he was soft defensively, even though he's got offensive talent. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know anything about the inner workings. This is not my world, believe me. I don't know any inner workings of this kind of stuff. But it reminds me a little bit of like if a player is this good and playing and from your town and playing in your not just playing in high school and setting all kinds of crazy records, you got to be well aware of them. And
he scored huge goals all that year, all these big pressure-packed goals. He scored them all year, and they ignored it.
I know they ignored it. It almost reminds me of a little bit of the kid that from where you are that the Flyers passed up right in the draft, the defenseman. D'Angelo, yeah, who is another guy who I think that the Flyers have plenty.
Could be ready next year.
Yeah, the Flyers have plenty of good defensemen, but D'Angelo is a hell of a defenseman when you watch him play.
We're starting to sound like Don Cherry here about the Leafs not drafting Toronto players or people from the GTA.
But you have to.
No, but there is something to be said. I'll tell you this: when I used to be in the business world, and I was in retail for a short time, it was in the video game business. I had a guy who would teach you and say, "You got to see what's going on in your own backyard."
Yeah.
And he would constantly have us keep an eye on, all the other companies that could be possible competition, and so they basically weren't watching their own backyard, and I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
like when you have a kid who was born in Denver and idolized Joe Sakic, and then Joe Sakic passes on him.
Right, which you've brought up many times,
Yes.
and he's phenomenal. So, but I will say this one thing about Philadelphia and Boston, specifically those 2 cities, okay? Because I grew up in Philadelphia, was in a band, as you guys know, and but was bigger in Boston than I was in Philly. And there's something about is that really a rim shot moment there?
No, I hit it by accident.
That was a Mike Ogello fail.
Thanks for making me feel better about myself. But no, but all I can say is this. I know it was. So all I can say is this, though. I learned that there is something about this area, especially Philly and Boston, where people from Boston, don't necessarily think the people from Boston are as good as the people from elsewhere. And the same, because I would run into bands from Boston who were like, wow, you guys get played on the radio so much. And they were just as, and I would run the same thing in Philly. I'd run into the same situation where there's something about being from away that brings on like, oh, you're a better player because you're not one of us. One of us couldn't possibly be that good.
And then you have like Long Island, where every hockey player is a savior, and he's amazing, and they should take and look, no disrespect to the Long Island hockey kids, but they're not,
Well, you see, New York is totally different in this math. And New York in general is totally different than Boston or Philly in this way. And Washington is too. Washington's a little bit different as well. But
New York's kind of watered down because it's like upstate New York is practically Toronto. Or
that doesn't. Yeah, but I mean, New York City people from New York City think people from New York City are good. I mean, that's not. There's no doubting that. But it was always easier to make it in another city in the Northeast, than it is where you're from. And I kind of get the feeling with White and D'Angelo. I mean, I know there was some other stuff with D'Angelo, and I mean all that stuff that was said. And
it was unfounded. I'm telling you, it's.
I know you've been very much on that.
I mean, I spoke to the kid for a long time. He literally lives a town away. That kind of stuff was, look, is there a little bit of it? Sure, but not enough to derail him.
Yeah, I mean, it derailed him, and he was really unfortunate. And because this is a player that he wanted to be a Flyer, he's grown up I'm sure White wants to be a Bruin in every which way. White had to think with those 3 picks he was going to the Boston Bruins, unless there's something else, unless there is something that we don't know about.
What else could there be? Seriously, what else could there be?
Some parent, okay, that the Bruins don't like. There's a player that's in the NHL right now that's from the Philadelphia area that's not a Flyer because of that.
Sure.
Bobby Ryan.
And he could be.
I know who the player is, and that's true.
It could be right. So that's not the case. So, and we want to get into who it is, but these things sometimes do happen where if a player is big enough in your area, and the team pays enough attention to him, the parents and the people around him start really pushing too hard and making it really uncomfortable. This happens in Toronto all the time.
And this is not exactly a secret. I mean, Toronto had the 4th pick this year, and McDavid, Strome, and Marner all from the Toronto area. And one of the concerns about Marner was his dad was perceived as being a little bit out of control. I mean, he's a typical hockey.
You can go to YouTube and find that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was banging against the glass or something like that.
It's completely unfair because these parents, I mean, it really should not be about them. And so much of they go back to the whole Eric Lindros thing and Carl Lindros and all this stuff. And it's just...
There's very few of them that really affect the career. And to be honest, I've interviewed Marner a bunch of times now. It does not affect him.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So sometimes you just miss your own area, I think, is what it comes down to. That's all the time we have for today, guys. Really got to go and chase down this other rumor. I will be back again tomorrow with lots more. I have so many more things that we didn't get to. So stay tuned until then. Thanks again to everybody for watching and being a part of the show. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.